friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Megan, and today I'm sharing with you all the books that I read in August. I'm gonna be honest here, I started really slumping towards the end after reading so many audiobooks last month and then like continuously reading a lot of audiobooks this month, and some of them probably didn't get like truly a fair shot because I was just so over reading audiobooks at one point. I do feel like I could pick out which ones I want to reread in the future, but just overall I was just like, ugh, after reading so many freaking audiobooks. My brain just needs a break. So I'm excited actually that I'm going on vacation soon and I'm just gonna be reading like physical books because that'll give me a nice like 2-week break from so much audiobook. But I was just like in an audiobook mood for a really long time, and now I'm like, I just want to physically read, so that's nice. But let me give you some stats. I read 20 books this month. I DNF'd 3. If you don't know what DNF means, if this is your first time, DNF means did not finish. Of those 20 books, I read 14 from my physical TBR plus 3 DNFs, so I didn't really count them, but they're 17. Then we have the 2 books I reread. I did 1 book from the library, and I did 3 that were books for review for NetGalley. So in total that's 20 books plus 3 I DNF'd, not counting those, but I just want to say I started those. And I read 15 on audio, so that's a lot of audiobook. I did 4 physical and 1 ebook. I had 5 5-stars, 3 4.5, 7 4-stars, 2 3.5, and 3 3-stars. 7 were fantasy, 5 were sci-fi or dystopian, 1 was a graphic novel, 1 was a YA fiction, 1 was middle grade, and 8 were adult romance and or fiction, and then 12 were standalones, 7 were the first book in a series, 3 were the middle book in a series, and 1 was a companion book. So those are my stats for the month. And as always, let's start with the digital reads. So my first 3, I actually did 4 books for review, but I own one of them, so it came off my physical TBR. Not to spoil that. So I'm proud of myself for kicking my butt in gear on my NetGalley arcs because I really need to catch up on those. The first one was High Time, and this was a what I thought. Admittedly, I did not read the synopsis. I really never read the synopsis, and I thought it was going to be Regency era, and that I think is what killed it for me because I went in with the expectation of it being Regency era and it was modern day, and I don't know why, I just don't like modern day things that much unless it's like very specifically like contemporary romance. Like I love Emily Henry and Sophie Cousins and Jen DeLuca. Like I like feel good contemporary romance. I don't really care for like anything with like High Time really delves into like financials and political intrigue and like class systems, and the like even though it's modern day, a woman has to marry in order to survive in this book. And I don't know, but those are ideals I think of associated with the Regency era, and I just don't like them associated with now, which they somewhat are in some places of the world. I just don't enjoy reading that. So this was not my favorite read. It was one of my 3-star reads, and admittedly again I should have read the synopsis to know like for sure what I was getting into before requesting it on NetGalley. I'm just such a like, I want to go into it with the least amount of information possible because that's how I enjoy books. Then we had Play For Me, and I loved this one. I forget if I gave it 4, I think I gave it 4.5 stars, not 5 stars, but I really did enjoy this one. This one is following a girl who was the trainer for the Red Sox, and when she makes a specific decision about a game and the Red Sox lose, leaves, then she is kicked out and fired from the team in an effort to like get a job and find a place to live. Now that she is without a job, she goes to this like boarding school, and at the boarding school she has to live with 3 guys. She is a athletic trainer at an arts school. Like the boarding school is specifically dedicated to like the performing arts and visual arts. So it's an interesting dynamic, and I did really love the roommate situation because it was giving New Girl vibes, a girl with 3 guys. One of the roommates and her do not get along, so it's an enemies to lovers romance. So overall, it was just a really fun time. I really enjoyed the relationship with her dad because mine is very similar and very close to my dad, and I love reading like dad-daughter relationships in books because they mean a lot to me, because my dad means a lot to me, and well, just in general, my family means a lot to me. Like any type of family relationship I just love reading about because I'm super close with my family. It was so cute to read about her and her dad, and I loved the enemies to lovers. I did feel like it was an appropriate evolution, I guess you could say. Like sometimes I feel like it moves too quickly or it moves too slow and you just don't really buy into it. There was one point in which I was like, that was a little too fast. I'm not sure, like, because he later explained himself, but we never really get his exact perspective. So he's going through all these thoughts about like falling for her without us knowing about it, and so all of a sudden he's just like, I'm falling for you, and it's like, wait, what? So I think that is why I gave it a 4.5 instead of a 5. That was like a little weird, but I just think that like the conflict was so realistic, and I loved their dynamic. I loved the family. Like overall, it was such a fun read, and I definitely recommend it. And then we had Kiss Me, Mi Amor, which is the sequel slash companion novel to Ramon and Julieta, and this is following Ramon's brother Enrique, who has read these articles about a young woman who owns and operates her own farm, and he is like enraptured with her. So he goes there to not only meet her but to learn more about her farm and how to take care of his farm workers better. But upon his arrival, she is just absolutely not having it. She has heard of Enrique and his family and their fast food chain, and she is absolutely not going to partner or talk to this man at all. Something comes up that they do eventually start talking, and then they become friends, and then her dad goes into the hospital, and he is her only option to go to the hospital because she doesn't have a car, and or something comes up where he has to drive her to the hospital to visit her dad. And he comes into the room with her, and her dad's like, oh, is this your novio, your boyfriend? And she's like, she saw how happy her dad was, so she's like, yes, this is my boyfriend, even though they hate each other. And so they have to like fake date. So it's like enemies to lovers fake dating, but there's a little twist. They don't fake date for long. The dad, like the whole family situation is very traditional. The dad views his daughters as possessions rather than family. The older daughter has to date before her younger sister can date. All that he expects from his daughter is not to like own and operate the farm, but to find a husband and to take care of him and be basically his slave and like cook for him, take care of the children, like be a housewife. And so she is just like butting heads with her family about this, and so I think it really delves into those kind of tensions that you might find in a family with more traditional views. Overall, I think it had a really good storyline with undertones of really important topics like the healthcare and taking care of farm workers, and then the traditional family views. So I really enjoyed it, and this was a 5-star read for me. I didn't know that it was a sequel to Ramon and Julieta, so I do want to read that one too because I really love the way this author writes. So I'll be checking that one out as well. So those were my 3 digital reads that were like standalones, and then I have a couple sequels, but I'll get to those when I get to the books themselves. So let's just delve into some of these audiobooks I read. First we have Aetherbound. This is a standalone novel following a young girl. In this world there's different types of ether magic, and there's like stars magic, or like star aether, I don't know how to say it, but basically that person can become a captain. And then there's like mechanical ether, who are the people who like run the ship, and then there's bioether, which is like people can like be doctors or help plants grow or that kind of thing. We're following a young girl who has this bioether, which I think sounds like a pretty important one, but the family is only looking for a captain, and they have not had a captain for ages. She is looked down upon and seen as a waste of space and a waste of food, and she is just treated awful throughout this whole book. And then one day it's discovered that she can change the genes of like a baby and choose what ether it's going to have, and so she becomes this like super prized possession. But she runs away and gangs up with this set of twins, and she marries one of them so that her family no longer has claim on her. And I think it's just a really fun little story. I was really vibing with it at first. I was really enjoying it, but by the end I kind of lost interest. But I do think it's a really fun short read. So I don't know where to put my books anymore. Oh, my foot's falling asleep. Stop.
A few moments later.
Then we have Ashfall Legacy. I read this one as well as Ashfall Prophecy. I believe this is a duology, but don't hold me to that. It might be a trilogy, and I'm just not picking up the third book in the series. But this started off really fun again, and it's following a human who, in this world, there's like this alien species that everyone just kind of knows about, but they like humans who have mated with the aliens, those somehow when you leave you can't come back to Earth because you'll get a disease. Our main character's father has gone out into space to try to find the cure for this disease, but our main character doesn't really remember him anymore. One day his grandfather comes and, or no, his uncle comes and finds him and brings him to space to go on the hunt for his dad. It has a really fun cast of characters. It's almost Star Wars-esque. I think even the main character is like, oh, this guy looks like Chewbacca. So it has fun references, and it has like really interesting characters. I don't know, I just kind of lost interest. Like I'm saying, I just like, I don't know if it's the slump or if it's just like it started off good and I just didn't care anymore, but I was really enjoying this one. I definitely liked book one more than book two. Book two was slightly unsatisfying, so maybe that is what like is affecting my views of book one. So that's Ashfall Legacy. Then we have Soundless. This is a standalone novel following a village in which they all can't hear, so it's like they're all soundless. And one day this girl starts to gain her hearing back, and she is just like, what's happening? And so she goes on the hunt to figure out what happens, and she goes into this town to discover that her village is basically being poisoned. I don't know, it was interesting, but I gave it a 3-star because like it was interesting, but there's not a ton going on. There's not a ton of plot. There's not a ton of like character building. I don't know. I just didn't feel like a lot happened. Like I feel like there was a lot of build up to a lot of nothing. It's just a meh read for me. Like I don't really care one way or the other. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. So that is why it's a 3-star. Then I read The Imposters as well as Shatter City. This I believe is actually a quartet, but I gave up after Shatter City. I was enjoying The Imposters. It's following a dystopian world following the series of The Uglies by the same author, and we are following a set of twins, although one of the twins is a secret and a body double. So we are following her journey into this kingdom to make an alliance, and she ends up falling for the prince of the kingdom, and there's just like a whole situation going on. So it was a lot of fun, but Shatter City, I just stopped caring about the characters. It just was such a letdown after The Imposters. Also, I did want to mention The Imposters goes a lot into like references the Uglies a lot and the Ugly regime a lot, and I have not read the Uglies, so that might have affected my review or like reaction to these books, but I did enjoy the first book. Then we had Mirage, and I don't know what was going on, but apparently I was just reading like space body double books this month. But this is also following, instead of sisters, this girl is in space and she lives in this like small village, and one day the village is like ransacked by these droids, and they come in and they're looking for something, and we're trying to figure out what they're looking for. They end up finding our main character, and she's like scanned, and they're like ding ding ding, and they kidnap her because it just so happens that she is almost an exact replica of the like heiress, and everyone hates this heiress, so they were looking for a body double to stand in for her because she's in such a dangerous conundrum because everyone dislikes her. But she gets to know this heiress and they start to become friends, and it's a fun little novel. I don't know if I ever like desire picking it up again, but it was pretty fun. Then we have The Henna Artist. This is like a historical fiction contemporary, as weird as that sounds. But historical contemporary, is that a thing? I guess it's historical fiction-ish. It's 1950s. We're following this girl who leaves her village due to an abusive relationship, and she goes to this other village and like kind of establishes herself as the henna artist of town. And so she gets all the village gossip, she's building her empire, all these things, and one day she even gets like hired by the regent of this kingdom. I forget if it's like a queen or an empress or a czaress or whatever you would call like Roman, is it Roman? I don't know. Regardless, she gets hired by like the highest lady in this place, so she's just living and thriving. And one day her ex-husband comes to town and like confronts her because he has found her little sister that she never knew existed. So she takes in her little sister because her parents have passed. She's like training her, but her little sister is just like, she doesn't, like, the main character just does not know how to be a mother. She only knows like what she was taught, I guess. And so she's like regurgitating what she was raised, and the little sister's just not having it. So it's just like an interesting family sister dynamic. And also like there's a lot to do with like reputation and gossip and all these things. So it's a really cool commentary, but I didn't enjoy it enough to pick up the rest of the series. So yeah. Then I read Other Words for Home, which is a middle grade novel in prose or poetry-esque style, and we are following a young girl who has been, like, her family where they live is in war or under attack, and her brother goes off to help fight, and her mother, because her mother is pregnant, moved to the United States, and it's actually in Ohio, which is cool because I'm from Ohio, and we're following like her journey into being a young girl who is, what's the word, transitioning, I don't know, into middle school. Not only is she an entirely different culture, but she is also just dealing with middle school in general, which sucks. I hated middle school. I think we all hated middle school, to be honest. But I did like the little dabble of theater we got in this one, so that was really cute. So yeah, Other Words for Home. Then we had Under Insanti We're Here, which is following a non-binary character named Under, who falls for their replacement at their family's taco shop named Santi. Well, I don't want to say what happens because it's a little bit of a spoiler reveal, but something happens that they are being separated. It's a really good commentary on like being human and like viewing people as human rather than their like culture or race, so I enjoyed that. Also, shout out to the edges on this. Love. Then we have Real Men Knit. This is following a like group of brothers who has recently lost their adoptive mother, and the young girl who worked at their not super young, but the girl who worked at their mother's knit shop or like yarn shop, she and one of the brothers gang together to keep the shop in session, or in, why can't I think of words today? Oh my gosh. Keep it like running, I guess. And so they have like this knitting drive to keep it running or whatever. It was okay. Wasn't really my favorite, and I don't really care enough about the characters to read book 2, which is the companion novel. Yeah. We have The Marriage Clock. I did enjoy this one. It's not really a romance, but it's more of a commentary on like this girl who's 26, which is viewed as basically a spinster in her culture, and like her trying to find a husband. I did find it really fun, and like just I feel like I've been in her situation in several of these instances, between like being catfished or like you go on a first date and they're just awful. So I did really like it for the relatability there. Luckily I'm 27 and I'm not a spinster yet, so go modern day. Yeah. Then we had Summer Reading. Loved this one. Really enjoyed it. It's following a girl who comes into town and she's like coming back home for the summer, and she falls for a library. Forget if he's bookstore or library. I think he's a library director, and he's like all about books, and she is just not, because it turns out she's dyslexic and she's always been treated differently for this, and like so she has just this like aversion to reading and books, and so she is just not all about it, but she falls for him, and so he gets her into reading, and he like reads to her, and it's so cute. I really enjoyed this one. Then we have Dreams Lie Beneath and Sisters of Sword and Song. I'm going to talk about these briefly because I do want to reread them. I love the way Rebecca Ross writes, and I think she has really intriguing and unique plots. I do not think I did these two justice by reading them on audiobook, I will admit. So these are the two that I want to reread. Sisters of Sword and Song follows this kingdom in which like people only have magic if they were born with it, or if they find one of the relics of the gods. And we're following a family who is the line of a disgraced god because he came to Earth to fall in love with a human. One of the sisters found a relic and goes off to be trained, and one day, I don't know, soldier captain something comes looking for her because she committed murder. And so her sister is willing to take part of her oh my gosh, why can't I think of words? Like her stay in prison. So she was supposed to serve for 15 years, and her sister is taking 5 of those years and living with the family of the person she murdered. So super interesting. And then we have Dreams Lie Beneath, which is following this family who fights dreams. Like these kids have nightmares, and then the nightmares come to life on the like full moon or something, and her family fights the dreams. How cool is that? I mean, freaking awesome. So I do want to reread these. They are such good, like, enticing storylines, and I just want to reread them like physically because I don't feel like I did them justice on audio. I feel like fantasy in general is better to read physically. I can read like contemporary romances no problem on audiobook, but for whatever reason, like the world building gets lost to me when I read it on audiobook. Then we have Kingsbane, which is a reread for me, as well as Queen of the Blazing Throne, which is the novella, companion novella. Loved this even more than last time, and I'm so excited to read Lightbringer because I haven't read that one yet, and I've read the first 2 books, first 2 in a novella, several times now. Not several, I don't know why I said that. 2 times now, and I am excited to pick up Lightbringer next month for sure. Then we have To Sir Philip with Love. Probably my least favorite of the series. I feel like Eloise's story deserved more, but I still really enjoyed it. It's a Grumpy Sunshine-esque kind of trope, so I did really enjoy it still. Like, it was still like a 4.5 stars, but the rest of the series has been 5 stars for me. And then we read Wonder Woman Warbringer, the graphic novel. If you watched my TBR, which I'll link up here, my dad picked this one and he said, like, read this one because your mom's Wonder Woman or something along those lines. It was super cute. I've read the actual novel of this, so it was fun to read the graphic novel adaptation of this and like see it come to life per se. So I did really enjoy this one, and it just reinvigorated my like intrigue in Wonder Woman, and I really want to watch the movie. I have not watched any Wonder Woman movie. How crazy is that? And then we have Bonesmith, my pride and joy. I say that like I wrote it. But no, I really did love this one. It's by Nikki Palpretto. I will probably do like a full review of this one at another point, so stay tuned for that. But it is following a ghost fighting warrior, and it is pitched as Gideon the Ninth meets Game of Thrones, and there's enemies to lovers, there's a man with gloves, there is elemental magic, kind of thinking like Avatar, but instead of like water, earth, air, fire, it's like bone, stone, gold, iron, like more of like the divisions of earth, I guess you could say. Fascinating, just chef's kiss. I love this bad boy. And then I had a few books that I started and did not finish yet. I started Pride and Prejudice. As long as this is taking me to read, I am really enjoying it actually, and I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it. It is very, very, very dense, and admittedly I fall asleep after like 2 chapters, so it's a very slow burn reading through this, but I am very intrigued, I swear. I think I just happen to read it every time I'm tired. I've never read any Pride and Prejudice. I've never watched the movie, so this has been a really interesting read so far. And then I'm about, I don't know, what would you call that, like a quarter of the way into Kingdom Keepers 3. I don't know why I stopped reading, like I could keep going on this, no problem. It's a middle grade following these kids who are holograms in the parks during the day, and then they're holograms and all the things of the parks come to life at night, and they have to battle the villains, so it's pretty fun. And I'm not very far into the Guncle. I think I'm only like 8% into the audiobook. So far we're reading the Guncle. I don't know much so far. And there you have it. Those are the books I read in August. Let me know what you guys read, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye friends.